Anna, 37 years old, accountant, city of Luhansk.
January 2022. Answers were provided in Russian. What was your summer like in 2014? What prompted you to leave or stay?
The year 2014 started very chaotically. We hoped that everything would unfold with intensity similar to Kyiv. There would be clashes, protests, and it would all end within 2 to 4 months. But by the end of spring, it became clear that we were mistaken. We left in early June, and 2 key events contributed to this.
Is there a story of yours or your close ones that you would like to share? What struck you the most?
First event. In winter, our daughter was born, and in early spring, we set out for vaccinations at the children's clinic. Leaving the intersection in Donbas, editor's note, the name of the bus stop, from the yards near the Security Service of Ukraine office building, a very young guy, about 18 to 20 years old, with a gun stopped us. The car had Kyiv plates as it was a work car, which put the guy in a somewhat unclear state. He started shouting at us, waving his weapon. My husband tried to talk to him calmly, showing our registration in Luhansk. But since the guy was clearly under the influence, drugs or alcohol, he was getting distorted from time to time. I sat with the child in my arms and was just frozen with fear. I was afraid that this inadequate person might accidentally or intentionally shoot one of us. Eventually, he told us to go home and then bring the car to their parking lot and leave it because you shouldn't fucking drive with Kyiv plates here. After that, we started going out much less and practically didn't use the car. Second event. After a while, the militants started seizing military units, one of which was near us. I remember looking out of the window, and under our building they were bringing in a mortar. After that, we heard gunshots along the windows, which I assume were warning shots to keep people from coming out, and they lasted for a long time. Then they exchanged gunfire with the guys who were in the military unit, and all of this was happening in a residential area. I was shaking the whole time, fearing that anything could happen to us overnight. The night seemed endless. I was relieved that our child managed to sleep and didn't witness our distress. The next day, we decided it wasn't normal, gathered what we could fit in the car, and left. At that moment, we were selling a similar car of a different color. We removed the plates, installed Luhansk region plates because we knew they wouldn't let us go with Kyiv plates. We discreetly hid the Kyiv plates in the child's clothing and later replaced them before reaching Ukrainian checkpoints. We passed 11 exclamation mark stalts, checkpoints, including 4 Ukrainian ones. It felt like an eternity from post to post. On one of the checkpoints, they were hesitant to let us through, and we had to wave with the little child. They grumbled, got annoyed, but eventually let us pass. After the post and all the anxieties, it seemed like the road to Kyiv ended instantly. That's how we left, but 2014 had many more unpleasant surprises for us. After settling in Kyiv, my mom came to visit, and on that very day, railway connections were cut off. She miraculously arrived just in time. She stayed for the entire summer, constantly in stress due to the lack of constant communication with my dad. My father survived there as best as he could all summer. Once he managed to hide behind a car before shell fragments started flying. Being a former military man, the characteristic sound prompted him to react quickly. According to his stories, bodies lay on the streets because there was no fuel to transport them, no electricity, and no water. He had to go to the dacha, where they gathered with friends, cooked food, fetched water, and survived as best as they could. My sister lived in Stanitsia Luhanska, and they stayed there until August. In early August, on her birthday, she was preparing a festive dinner. A friend emerged from the basement where she had been staying and working remotely. While my sister's friends remained outside smoking, she went into the house to prepare food. It got dark in the room. Something crumbled from the window. When my sister and her family realized what was happening, they quickly hid. After everything quieted down, They waited for another 15 minutes and rushed outside. Both of my sister's friends remained sitting on a bench in the same position, with several shrapnel pieces in their bodies, which turned out to be fatal. In the fall, we received news that a shell hit the house where my husband's father had lunch with friends on that day. A close person, father-in-law, lost his life. At that moment, all the anger and hatred were boiling inside, and there was a desire to cry out of helplessness. It was a very difficult summer. Besides what was happening at home, the situation outside was much worse. People were very irritated, and it was always uncomfortable to say where you were from because many reacted inadequately. Some blamed us, personally, and people like us, for the war. It was so unpleasant to hear, especially bearing the burden of what we had experienced. We were insulted, called bandits, and my sister's car was smeared with paint. Then, no matter what happened, displaced people from Donbas were always blamed. If someone was killed, something was destroyed, someone was robbed, it was often attributed to residents of Donbas.
How did the year 2014 change your life?
Year 2014 left a deep wound, and time does not heal it. It only calms down for a while. But there are moments when it collapses, and you just want to cry out all the pain and scream out all the anger.
If you had the chance to go back to 2014, would you do something differently? If yes, what specifically?
I know that on a global scale, I might not have been able to influence the situation significantly. Most likely, I would have tried to do something, but above all, I just wanted to protect loved ones, friends, and acquaintances. It's just a pity that we couldn't save those who are no longer with us. It was really difficult, but in the end, I have nothing to regret now. They took our home, pulled us out of our lives. Luhansk might not be the best city on earth, and many wanted to leave it. But when you are forcibly expelled from your life sphere, there's a strange feeling when you can't understand where is your home at all. We set out to find a home in another country, editors mark Spain, and we found it.
How do you feel about your life now? Do you have any regrets?
We relocated to Spain, built a new home from scratch, from a blank sheet. We tried persistently to move forward, trying to find the positive in everything. Because the scariest thing is to close yourself off, enter your cocoon, where grief, anger, and depression will simply poison life and consume it until they change your personality beyond recognition.
Do you plan your future? If yes, for what term?
All this time we didn't make long-term plans. We just went with the flow and saw what would happen. Only for trips we prepared in advance. And just as we started making plans, quote, for the future, COVID immediately erupted, which also changed a lot. However, we are still building plans. Just now there are some that require looking far into the future and others. So thoughtful breaks. So you plan something. But as the old saying goes, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. I would like people to look at us, at all of us, from a different perspective. I hope they don't consider us enemies and traitors.
January 2024. Answers were provided in Ukrainian. On February 24, 2022, a full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia began. What was this day like for you? What were your feelings, and how did you react?
As usual, I woke up and went to the shower. When I came out, my husband told me that the war had started. Even in December, we had a conversation when the Russians brought vehicles to the borders. I was gripped by fear then, and I said, "Something is going to happen." To which my husband and friend said, "It's just a show." How cool it would be for me to be wrong. I just went into hysterics and couldn't stop for 20-30 minutes. Then I started flipping through Telegram channels. At that time, I had only one or two with Ukrainian news. Flipping, switching to others and others and others, I got lost in the news. And then it hit me like a shock, and I realized it's Ukraine. Appalled. Anya, damn it, my friends, family, acquaintances are there. I started calling and texting everyone whose numbers I could find. In the evening, I realized that life had divided into before and after. After all the news on the first day, there was so much anger, which only grew, because even news about unknown innocent people killed just shattered the heart. And I woke up in Spain. I can't even imagine what people in shelled houses felt.
Were you forced to leave Ukraine, perhaps temporarily?
We moved to Spain in 2015. Some said there was no war in your country. It was very annoying that many people, not knowing all these geographical divisions of the USSR, called us all Russians. I always had to correct them. It was very difficult to adapt to a new country with a new language, but the Spaniards are cool. They were very helpful both in the distant 2014, 2015, and in 2022. I volunteered and felt the support when we marched with flags. Many people applauded and shouted, "Putin, the killer." Living abroad for 7 years, having a home, a job, a family, I still feel that my home is there in Ukraine, but as in January, the thing is, I have no home. It feels like you simultaneously belong to two countries and belong to none, because in Spain, we will always remain newcomers, and in Ukraine, you are the one who left the country. As for work, it turned out pretty cool. I learned a new profession that I really liked, worked for several years, and then went to work for a Ukrainian specialty as an accountant because they pay more for this job. It was an opportunity to see how it would turn out. Actually, I would like to return to Ukraine. After the full-scale attack, even more so, because I saw that society began to change dramatically for the better. Changes started in both political and social spheres. Slowly, but they exist. Ukrainian society has grown up, but so much time has passed, and I don't know if I can leave everything again and start anew in Ukraine. But my daughter dreams of living in Ukraine when she grows up. That's so sweet.
What changes and transformations have occurred with you, if any, as a person during these 2 years of full-scale invasion?
On the one hand, one could say that there were significant changes, but on the other hand, none at all. Because it seems like the Russians, with their actions, just opened this Pandora's box, something that everyone has deep inside. And they released such evil, such anger and hatred, that I didn't know how much of it I could contain. Hating someone like that, it was a lot. Survivor's guilt, pre-depressive state, maybe even depressive, tears, so many tears. But all that anger gave strength. After work, it helped to assist refugees, protests, discussions, sorting in warehouses, explaining the details of what happened to Spaniards, meetings with donors, appearances on television, radio, wherever they called, we always went, filling every possible space with yellow-blue colors so that people could hear us, see us, and know that Russia was killing us. This anger helped overcome fatigue, sleep a bit, and in the morning, it gave me the strength to get out of bed. However, the mental state was seeking a psychologist because it was frightening.
If you could go back to 2014, would you do anything differently?
I thought a lot about what I could have done in 2014. At that time, I was not politically mature enough. Let the politicians sort things out on their own as long as they don't bother us and we won't bother them. The Russian propaganda machine was very strong. I think with the experience I have now, I should do everything possible to build strong resistance, create ultra interesting but effective pro-Ukrainian propaganda. I would do something. I feel ashamed that I did nothing. Perhaps this shame will stay with me until my last breath. But I know that I did a lot, as much as I could in 2022 to 2023, and I won't be ashamed of that.
Do you plan your future? If yes, for what term? How do you envision the future of Ukraine?
In some things, yes. In others, no. Regarding possessions, I gradually buy things like a compass, a folding knife, a bit of extra food, a small generator, a flashlight. But regarding actions, no. There are some big plans that need to be implemented someday. But on the level of daily life, it's more like improvisation. Sometimes you don't plan for certain things, you just take action. And sometimes you can't gather yourself to plan anything. Plans have been falling apart since 2014, a year I never planned to move from the city of Luhansk. I was fine there. So plans are plans, but life has its own way of deciding. I see a great future for Ukraine, a country of great people, wounded, enraged, hurt, but powerful. The whole world has learned about Ukraine and Ukrainians, with many in shock at how tough we are, our military, our volunteers. A new foundation for society is now being formed, one that future generations will rely on. That new foundation, which has been earned through the blood and lives of many good people, will be laid upon the ruins of the past. I want the entire society to continue pressing harder on the government and fighting against bribery, thieves, and anyone who enriched themselves at the expense of the war. I believe in victory, not that it will be easy or soon, but I know it will come. There is no other way.